You're listening to the Better Relationships After Baby podcast, where I believe your relationship can be stronger than ever after having a baby. It just takes tools, conversation, and support to help you get there. I'm Chelsea Skaggs, certified life and relationship coach, mom of two, and survivor and thriver of tough relationship challenges after babies. I'm committed to helping couples just like you improve your communication skills, connection points, and personal confidence so that you can have the life and family you've always dreamt of. Now, let's get to today's episode.
Hello, mamas. As you are hearing this episode, I am on vacation with my family, and I was going to try to double up episodes before leaving, but I wanted to practice what I preach, give myself some space, and realize that it is okay to take the whole week off, take the vacation, be there, be present, be with my family. And so I am digging into the archives today from episode, I don't know the episode number, but it is from season 1, and it is the most played podcast episode. So maybe you've already heard it, maybe you haven't, but this is on matrescence, and it's titled When Motherhood Feels Like Puberty. And this was truly, learning about this term was the introduction to my passion for supporting new parents through the transitions. It was what made me feel frustrated about how much we are not given adequate information about how we truly change through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. And it lit my fire for this business, for coaching, for working with new parents. And so in this episode, you're going to hear the discussion on what matrescence is, why it can feel so much like puberty to become a parent, and some mindful ways to get to know yourself, give yourself grace and patience through the change, and lean into who you are becoming. So I hope that you enjoy this episode back from season 1 in 2022.
What I'm about to share with you today is a concept that radically changed my life. If I had to tell you one thing that helped me to rethink motherhood and the experience of entering motherhood and my personal value and my transition and the journey that it is, if there was one thing that catapulted me into a place where I started to geek out and love learning about the transition of motherhood, it is this concept that I'm going to be sharing with you today. Have you ever felt like motherhood kind of feels like puberty? Like you are a little unsure of yourself, you feel a little out of place in your body, you're not sure where these thoughts come from. It's like a little unsettling, a little uncertain. Well, if that's the way that you felt, I'm going to tell you today why you might feel that way and why motherhood feels a lot like puberty. The short answer is that it is. It is a lot like puberty. I want to introduce you to a term that we're going to be using today, and this term is called matrescence. Now, matrescence is a term that was coined back in the 70s by a medical anthropologist named Dana Raphael. And you'll notice that the word matrescence sounds a lot like adolescence, and I want you to hold on to that because we're going to draw a lot of parallels. Sure, we talk and joke about the changes we feel and experience in motherhood. There are often memes and there's Instagram reels and there's all this stuff out there about having mommy brain or the way that you maybe don't feel like yourself in your skin and in the mirror and in your experience. But there is truly a science to it, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. My hope is that this information normalizes what you are experiencing and that it gives you language to discuss it in your own head, to discuss it with friends, to discuss it with your partner, and that this encourages you to build community and support around this season of your life. Now, like I said, this term was coined in the 70s as research began around how the brain literally shifts as a woman goes from pre baby, no baby, to pregnancy and on through postpartum. And so there's a university called Autonomous University in Barcelona. There's been other research on this topic, but I'm going to use their research to guide us. So, the Autonomous University in Barcelona conducted a study, and this included brain scans of women before and after pregnancy. And what they found was that there was a significant gray matter change in their brains during this transition in a woman's life. So, again, this team at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, they started to perform these brain scans on first time mothers before and after pregnancy. And what this started with was like, we understand that there are seasons, specifically adolescence and puberty, where our brains are shifting and changing. And I love that they give this example of pruning. It's almost like you have these blossoms and we are pruning what is and isn't needed. So, throughout adolescence, uh, teens, children, adolescents, they lose gray matter. We lose gray matter as the brain connections we don't need are pruned out and our brains are sculpted into adult form. So, there are things that our brains needed as we were children, and these things are pruned out in order to create the composition of our brains that is more adapted to what we're going to need as an adult. And so, similarly, this is what we're seeing happening from pre baby through 2 years postpartum. This is the extent to which this research has been done. And so we know, like, a lot of this has to do with hormones, a lot of this has to do with preparation for the next season of life. A lot of this is happening when our bodies are responding to a change, such as puberty and pregnancy. And the outcome is that there are anatomical brain scans, and they took scans from women who were trying to conceive, they were trying to get pregnant, and then when they did get pregnant, and for 2 years after that. During this, they saw that new mothers experienced gray matter change for at least 2 years after birth. And this is talking about how our brains are pruning from pre baby to pregnancy and postpartum in order to best be able to accommodate the needs, the changing needs that we have, that our circumstances give to us. Think about it as going from a generalist to a specialist. So you had a generalist brain as a woman, as a human who needed to navigate the world, but then your brain is like, okay, some things have got to change, some things got to go because we need to make space for this specialized experience of growing and caring for a baby and becoming a mom. So, the only other time, like I said, that the brain goes through change on this scale is during adolescent. And it makes sense, right? These times are very alike. Maybe you've thought about that. Maybe you haven't. I did not at first, but once I started to reflect on it, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I feel different in my body. The way that I perceive myself socially is different. I feel a little bit wobbly most of the time because I'm figuring out how to be a human in a whole different way. We are preparing for a new season or a new version of ourselves. And I just want to reiterate that this research that has been done shows that our brain composition continues to shift for at least 2 years after giving birth. So let me just say, we can stop pretending that everything should be, quote, back to normal after a couple of months having a baby. No way. It is continuing to shift and change for this new transition. And some things that this might impact, this impacts your emotional responses. This impacts your connection with others. It impacts the values that you hold, like what is most important to you. It impacts your perception of existing within your body. It impacts your friendships. It impacts your confidence. You are maturing into a new person because of all of your changing circumstances. And this term again, matrescence, sounds like adolescence because it is. Matrescence is the all the areas, the physical, mental, emotional, social areas of your life that are impacted by the transition from being a woman without baby to becoming a mother. We have to focus on this. I do not think that we give enough recognition and enough honor and enough attention to this transition. It's like we are taught to get pregnant, have the baby, have a couple hard weeks figuring out sleep and breastfeeding, and then everything should be back to normal, right? No, this isn't right. I'm not saying that your life should feel detrimentally changed, but when we don't honor the transition, we do a huge disservice. Can you imagine going through puberty and adolescence and having such little information about it and having people not recognize that so much has changed within you, that even your brain composition is different? And yet, this is what we do to mothers, specifically in Western cultures, such as the US, where we have very little recognition, honor, and respect for the difference. Now, it's worth noting that this is going to look and feel different for each woman. And I think there are a few factors to that, such as your culture, your upbringing, whether or not you were exposed to authentic motherhood experience as a child or in an earlier season of your life, your consumption of social media and other media outlets, where you form your expectations of yourself as a mother, your own relationship with your mother or a mother figure in your life. Like this evolution of self is not good or bad, it is complex. It's both beautiful and hard, it's both joyful and overwhelming. But I want to see a society where we have a recognition of the matrescence season. And I'm not saying that everything has to stop or that, you shouldn't have any responsibilities or that we shouldn't have goals for our own care and bodies and the things that we want to integrate back into our lives. I'm not saying that we do that, but I'm saying we need to stop dismissing. We need to stop dismissing the reality that motherhood brings a lot of change, and the fact that we just expect women to go on with their lives as if they did not have a baby, as if nothing had changed, as if their brains were the same as they were before. It's a total disservice. I won't go on a tangent on this, but I'll just do a quick plug on it that I think that if we had more leadership that was in tune with the nature of how we evolve as humans, of how parenthood and motherhood specifically impacts us, like if we had leadership in tune with that, I think that we would have a society that was more authentic, that was more connected, that was more rooted in values that are just not so cutthroat, right? Like, I had a client once that was lamenting how a friend had said to her, "Wow, you've really changed." And she felt discouraged because she wanted to be able to show up in the same ways. And this is a fine line because I think it is so important for us to stay connected to our core selves, to not become fully absorbed in motherhood, to not throw our whole identity into motherhood, to be able to have pleasures and activities and experiences that are really authentic to the core of ourselves. And in the same breath, we need to honor the natural process of changing and celebrate that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this picture. There's like a drawing of two people, and one says, "Man, you've changed." And the other one says, "Yeah, we're supposed to." And this reminds me of how motherhood is like a refining fire. It's a time where we get to figure out what's most important to us. We get to get into the core of who we are and what our top values are. And it's okay. It's okay for you to change. But I also recognize that we don't live in a society and a time that gives us a lot of honor to our change, and it doesn't give us a lot of space. Like, it's almost like we have to immediately pick which box we fit into. I remember when I first became a mom, it felt like I needed to quickly identify what type of mom I was, almost like it was like a quiz. I don't know if you guys used to read Alloy way back in the high school days, but I remember reading Alloy and loving taking their online quizzes when, oh my gosh, I'm going to date myself. Please message me if you remember this. But we would have those big Max books, not the sandwich, the computers in the library of my high school. They were like the huge ones where the backs were different colors, and it was like so cool because you could see the inside through the like colored transparent plastic. But I would go every chance I got and take the latest alloy quiz. And I remember when I became a mom, I felt like I quickly had to figure out what type of mom I was. And I was like, okay, well, I'm totally the crunchy mom, right? Like, I'm going to breastfeed and co sleep and not give my kids sugar and not have any screen time and only wear organic materials and only have neutral colors. And there's nothing wrong with those things, you guys. Like, a lot of that aligned with my values, but the actual authentic thing was that I put myself in this box as quickly as possible because I felt like, okay, now that I'm a mom, I have to figure out what type of mom I am or which box of motherhood that I fit into. And the reality is that we don't need that. We don't need boxes. We don't need to be typed. We need to have space to just reflect on and process out and honor the fact that we're changing. And when we change, that doesn't mean that we have to have it all figured out right away. You don't have to figure out right away exactly who you are as you've changed. You get to enjoy the journey, right? It's super cliche, but it's not about the destination. It's not about figuring out which box you fit into. It's about the journey. It's about how you become and uncome and reform and reintroduce yourself in the process. There are a few things that I think, that I personally think that women need in this matrescent season. And so I personally focus on the months 4 through 24 months after having a baby. So I love mamas through the fourth trimester. But I don't necessarily know that that's the time to do a lot of the inner reflecting and making sense. Like, you're literally just trying to survive. You're trying to get some sleep. You're trying to figure out, if you're breastfeeding, how to get your boobs in a place where they're not falling off and your baby's getting milk. And if you are not breastfeeding, you're trying to figure out like how to have your bottle warmed at the right temperature so that baby takes it and exactly how much they need to take in, and chart it and use these apps and use these like bracelets on your wrist so that you know what's next. And so there's a lot of survival mode. So I'm definitely not inviting you or asking you to process your life changes in those early days. And I would actually really advise you against it. Like, take the time to learn how to survive in this new season. And then, as you come out of the fog a little bit, and I am not suggesting that it just becomes like easy peasy, snap your fingers and nothing is like hard and new and challenging anymore, because I don't know, I'm 6 years in and I still have not had that moment. But I think we start to come out of the fog a little bit and we start to see ourselves and we're like, okay, I made it through those first couple of months. We did this. And now, who am I? Like, who the fuck am I? And who's my partner, and how do we interact together, and how do I fit in socially, and what do I do with work, and like, what do I care about? How do I spend my time? How do I take care of myself in the midst of all of these outside pressures and things that I have to take care of? So this is what I see a lot of women going through in this 4 to 24 month space. And I also make a quick note that if you are past those first couple of years, um then these studies are showing that maybe your brain matter is not changing as much. However, if you did not have the space to process those first couple of year changes, then you may be still working through these things. So this might still apply to you. And if you are someone who's expecting, or you haven't become a mom yet, this is just really important information for you to think about how you're going to give yourself the space and the resources to very intentionally go through this transition and feel really in tune with yourself in the process. So, these are the things that I find women need in this season. First, you need space. You need space to discuss and process the evolution and changes and how those changes impact you. So for some people, this is like you just have a really great group of mom friends that you can have really authentic, no bullshit conversations with. Or maybe you're fortunate enough to have a mother or a mother-in-law who doesn't have weird expectations of you and you feel really comfortable with them. Or maybe this is a coaching group like Motherhood Uncovered, which is built exactly for this and is the small group coaching program that I offer for moms who are between 4 and 24 months and want to really make sense of their changes and be empowered in that state. This is just even the conversations we have, whether that's online or whether that's in person, but just having conversations to bring normalcy and reminders that we are not alone. 6 years ago when I first had my baby, the social media landscape was very different. I'm thankful. I'm super thankful that today there's a lot more authentic messaging out there around motherhood. There's lots of trending hashtags about like real motherhood and motherhood unplugged. And there's still some shit out there. There's still actually a lot of bullshit out there, but there are a lot more people talking about their experience without rose colored glasses and also without like doomsday glasses. Okay. I don't think that we need to wear doomsday glasses because changing is not a doomsday and becoming a mother is very difficult, but it's also not like a a life sentence. I mean, it kind of is a life sentence, let's be honest, but it's not like a dooming experience either. So, as you think about this, you get to be really intentional about the kinds of messages and conversations that you're a part of. So, some ways that I tell my mamas to make sense of this is to first, like I just mentioned, get choosy about where you get your input and form expectations of yourself and your baby. So, if you're like following a bunch of mom influencers from Utah, and no shade to Utah, I mean, a little shade to Utah, I guess, but like it's like the quintessential everyone has the same hair and the same design in their home and it's always clean and they have all these wooden blocks everywhere and that's totally fine, but like if that's not serving you then just unfollow it, okay? Think about where you're forming your expectations of yourself and your baby and get choosy about that. Get intentional about what you're letting come in. And I talk about screens because that is where we're getting a lot of our input as moms, but this is also like the play groups you go to, okay? If you like go to a play group meetup and you feel like everyone is just in performance mode, then maybe that's not the place for you. Like maybe we try to find something a little more fitting. Another thing for you to be working through is addressing your preconceived ideas and expectations. So, you likely had a picture in your head of what motherhood was going to be, especially as a first time mom. What did you think this was going to look like and feel like? And it's important for you to tap back into that and to say, okay, this is what I thought. And now as I'm going through this and my brain is reforming itself through this incredible transition, here is my reality. And how do those measure up? And are there areas that I'm celebrating? Are there areas that I'm grieving? Do I just need to pause and say, wow, I thought that was going to be different? But don't let it just live in your body. Give some space to address and process those preconceived ideas and expectations you had. And this is kind of a side plug, but do that with your partner too, if you have a partner. Have the conversation with them about what you thought it was going to look like and what they thought it was going to look like based on your upbringing and where you started to form your ideas about parenthood. This can be really important and really powerful, especially if you're having some disagreements or you're not feeling like you're working as a team in the way that you want to. Then there's probably a reason. There's probably something going on where you both had different expectations, and that's okay. That's totally normal because you have two different life experiences, but talk about it. Get that out there. Okay, the next thing to make some sense of all of this is to get some clarity around your personal and family values and goals so that you're not chasing everything. Okay, let's go back to that example of like, I'm so sorry, Utah moms, but like long blonde, dirty blonde hair and wooden toys and super clean kitchen. Like, you might look at those things and be like, "Oh my god, I'm so dumb. Like, I don't have my hair done today, or my house isn't that clean, or my kids' toys don't look like that." But like, does that really truly matter to you? If it does, if that really hits the mark of your family values, then okay, let's focus on how to get closer to those things. But if those really aren't your top values and goals, and instead you're just scrolling thinking, like, oh, I should be more like that, I should be more that like that, you're chasing everything. You're chasing everything and feeling like shit about it. And then you're not able to get clear and focused on what's most important to you. Next thing, whew, I'm getting fired up, is to go beyond venting. Okay. Venting is fine. Like venting sessions happen, but go beyond venting. Okay. When you vent, you like just get it off your chest, but not really because it's going to come back and you're going to want to vent about it again. But go beyond that to have a space to help you grow. Again, this could be something like, I'm going to plug here, Motherhood Uncovered, where we truly form community around making sense of all these changes and getting clear about what you want. But this can also just be like the friend that you know, like, hey, I'm going to get this off my chest and we're going to go to the next step. We're going to figure out some things that are going to help us grow. Like, let's have a growth mindset about this. It could just be like recording a voice memo on your phone or journaling where you get some things out and you ask yourself, how can I continue to grow towards what I want? And then this is like a cultural change that I so long for, but working towards more openness with other women. The safe vulnerability is how we grow and how we change the narrative around motherhood on a bigger scale. I want to live in a society where we don't have to impress and compete and bullshit each other all the damn time. Making that societal change is big, right? So it starts with us in our small groups that we enter into. For me, I have dedicated my time, my energy, my expertise to having groups like Motherhood Uncovered so that there are safe, authentic spaces that can change the way we think about this narrative of motherhood. But also, like, let's look for and create and be part of the change that brings those to the everyday conversations. Okay, just a couple of things that I want to remind you of before I go. You are integrating new parts of yourself, right? Like you are still you, but I'm going to give you an example and then I'm going to stop here. Think about those of you who have an iPhone, and we're not here to debate iPhones, but you often get these reminders to update your operating system, right? Because some new things have happened behind the scenes. There's new connections in the interwebs of iPhoneness and they need to be able to recalibrate so that it can operate most optimally. That was a hard word to say. Optimally. The same thing is happening to you. You are updating your operating system. And you have to recognize that and you have to give it time and space to work out the kinks and to figure out how to run it differently. I tell you what, there is nothing more frustrating to me than when an app changes its like little picture on my phone screen. And so I'm like going to the same place, looking for the same thing in the same folder, and I don't recognize it because it looks a little bit different. That frustrates me, but it's part of life. It's part of the changes that happen. And this is the same thing that's happening for you. You have to give yourself space and time to get to know how to work with the new operating system. And it's okay for this to feel awkward, just like puberty. So I hope that today's conversation gave you some insight and some things to think about and to get excited about as you realize that matrescence, the transition into motherhood, the brain matter restructuring is real and it's worth having time and space to honor it, and to give yourself grace and to just be part of, like, I hope that you listen to this and you're like, I want to be part of changing the conversation for women and for new moms. So share this with your partner, share this with somebody at work, share this with someone at a mom group when you're like, hey, did you know that this happens? Listen to this podcast and you can learn more about it. And again, if you are someone who is in this season of, you're out of the fourth trimester, you're 4+ months after baby, and now you really want to figure out, wow, how have I changed? And who do I want to be as I move forward as a woman, a partner, a mom, a friend? Like, how do I get to know what has changed and process that and honor that and think about what is in the future for me. If that's you, you are 100% fit and the right woman for Motherhood Uncovered, which is my small group coaching program where I take you through 12 weeks of 12 of the main themes that impact new moms. And I guide you through it. I give you space and prompts to reflect on. And I facilitate this conversation for you with other women in a similar space so that you, one, don't feel alone. Two, you can bounce ideas off of each other. And three, you can build some really authentic connections, which improves your confidence, which improves your connections in your home and in other places. Like, this is a golden experience and opportunity. And I am not magic. Like, I'm not going to like throw some magic dust on you and make everything, super easy and super perfect, whatever the hell that means. But what I do and what I offer you is that I create and facilitate this space where you can show up and let down your walls and be integrated in a community that truly gives a shit about you and your changes and your processes and your growth and expansion, and gives you tools and strategies to do that so that you're not just like harboring resentment and change and uncertainty in your body, because that embeds in your subconscious. Like, it never really goes away. We can avoid things, but they don't go away. But you give a space to it, and you recognize it, and you honor it, and you then are able to see yourself more clearly and see your future path more clearly. And that is what I want to offer to you. So if that's you, do not hesitate to message me the word uncovered on Instagram at the WTF trimester. You can also email me, Chelsea at the WTF trimester.com. I spell my name Chelseaa, like the ocean, at the WTF trimester.com. You can send me a voice memo here on, if you're on Anchor listening to this podcast, you can send me a voice memo there. But like, I know it's scary, right? I know it's scary to like open up to other people, to open up our energy, to open up our finances, to open up our time. But truly, I have seen the way that you can expand so that you can continue to move into really wonderful places in your life. And that is what you deserve. And that is what I offer you through Motherhood Uncovered. If you want to learn more about matrescence, obviously you can Google it. Like, there's stuff out there. I highly recommend the TED Talk by Dr. Alexandra Sachs. She's a reproductive psychiatrist. She is fabulous. I want to be her when I grow up. Just kidding. I love who I am, but I want to integrate more and more of her knowledge, her wisdom, and her passion into my work and just learn from that. But that TED Talk is an excellent place to start. And if you need more resources, feel free to message me. I'll show you all the geeky studies that I nerded out on while preparing for today's episode. Take care of yourself, and I will talk to you soon. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you take a minute to help spread the word. As a small business owner, shares and reviews go a long way. So share this episode with a friend, share it on your social media, and please leave a review if you haven't done so. This helps these messages get to more mamas, and you guys, that's how we change the world.